Hello, dear friends, and welcome to our podcast dedicated to sight reading through the lens of the historically informed performance practice. My name is Darina, and today I'm having a conversation with the leader of the ensemble Il Giardino Armonico after a fascinating concert in Basel dedicated to symphonies of Joseph Haydn.
I'm Giovanni Antonini, I'm a recorder player. I'm director of Il Giardino Armonico since many years, and I also conductor for symphony orchestra around the world.
And you're also a traverso player, right?
Actually, not so much in the last times, because I have not so much time. It's really my instrument was more on the recorder.
Yeah, but I still cannot forget this wonderful video of Telemann's Parisian Quartet near the fountain.
Yeah, we were very young. It's a very nice video, and also the piece. So it's the last piece of the Quartet Parisien. So it's a beautiful chaconne by Telemann.
So it's because of you I have played it on my final exam at the Moscow Conservatory. Yes, I'm also a traverso player.
Fantastic.
Could you tell a little bit how did you get onto this path of being a musician?
I always say that I have to thank the recorder. I start quite late. I come from a family of meloman, but not musicians really. I didn't show particular gift for music in early years, and suddenly I around 12 years old, I discovered the recorder myself, and I went to Milano. There were the first courses of recorder, professional courses, and there I started to love this instrument. And really, I'd say that the music came to me really through the recorder. And when I was 20, we founded with Lorenzo Ghielmi and Paolo Beschi, the Giardino Musicale was in the beginning. It was 1985, so a lot of years ago. And from that moment was a sort of development. I can say we start with Vivaldi, with the Concerti da Camera, and then we had also very good occasion because when Harnoncourt proposed us to Teldec, we entered in a big label that today doesn't exist no more. So it was really something, but the source for me was really the recorder. And even today, I continue to play, and always with me, even when I conduct, I have my recorders, and every day I continue to play.
So you play every day, recorder?
Yes, of course. And when I sometimes I forget, I feel something missing, really. So it's really part of my life. Also a very healthy instrument because it's really based on easy blowing, and I think it's really a part of my musical daily life.
And how did you decide to become a conductor?
It was quite natural because in the early 90s, Teldec proposed us to do a CD of Christmas concerti. And so we put together a small chamber orchestra. In that moment, I started to conduct, and then, I continue with this idea. Then the first proposals, after some years, I have to say, came also from symphony orchestra. And I arrived to 2004 that I received a proposal from Berliner Philharmoniker. It was very surprising for me. But also was the moment when, let's say, the modern orchestras, even so established, so let's say, symbol of, let's say, classical music, they were interested to another approach. And I think also Harnoncourt did a great job because also with Concertgebouw Amsterdam. So it was a process that really started in the 80s, and I was part later, of course, I was part of this process to meet a musician coming from completely other background. And sometimes it was really difficult because we spoke completely different language, and to speak about articulation, and sometimes it was also a bit dramatic because when you have an orchestra, often they want to know, but also can happen that some players refuse completely, and that became quite hard.
And how did you find a way to resolve that disagreement?
Sometimes I realize that often the disagreements come from the fear. So when someone don't understand, especially in a symphony orchestra where you are so exposed, and often you are a recorder, radio orchestra, and also the, let's say, big environment, and even the colleagues observe you. So when someone feel unsure, it's quite easy that can become even aggressive in a way, or refusing. You know, there are orchestras that I never went back, for example, because I thought it's not my way I should go. Or orchestra where the sound was completely so far from my idea, what I can do there, why they want me. So I'm interested to go when people, musicians, they know, they want, they expect, and they want to develop my music idea. If to go somewhere and to fight, to convince someone, no, it's not interesting, and also quite stressing. Not, I'm enough old now to, they don't want to do this.
And how do you experience yourself as a conductor on stage? Because as a musician, you have your instrument, you have maybe a music stand, and as a conductor, you're with your back to the audience, and you're facing your musicians. You have your hands for the gestures. How does it feel?
It's a completely different approach, because sometimes I forget there is a public behind me, and of course the big work is done before the concert, the rehearsals, but then what happens in concert is very interesting, because there's a sort of dialogue with eyes and so on. Many different things can happen, and also we are a group in the case of Giardino Armonico that make a lot of rehearsals. Let's say also for this project, for example, we did 4 days of rehearsals, then 4 days and a half of recording, and it's really going in the details and speaking about the language, how to realize these articulations, these dynamics that make, I would say, that quite you can recognize the sound of Giardino Armonico since ever. And because you can like or not, of course, but it's very clear what we are. And also, I would say, often imitated in some way. But I would say imitated, but not really, most of the time, not really understanding which is the way to arrive to this sound. Just maybe imitating the more external aspects.
How would you describe the development of your group, Il Giardino Armonico, through the years, and your development as a person through the years?
I have to say that dealing a group, you learn so many things, also not only about music, but also about life, because a group is a sort of small society, and leading a group can do also mistakes in the relations. And then, of course, you learn how also to get results, maybe in better ways, for example. Making music is something that involves always the affect. So in a way, you cannot do external. So sometimes even too much, I would say. I would say that it's quite difficult sometimes to divide the real life, normal life from the music. For me, I don't see a division in this. I don't feel never that I work also. I feel like I say I never worked in my life because, or maybe I work to organize. This work, and writing mails, and again up to date. But on the side of music, I cannot consider a work, a job in a way. Never. I think that maybe if I learn something is this: how to deal, how to understand even more the others. In a way, making music together and leading a group can be a great lesson for the life.
And you mentioned something that you don't experience it as work when you conduct. But what about pieces that are maybe not as strong, or maybe that personally you don't like so much?
In general, I avoid to pieces that I don't like or that I'm not able to do. In the case of Haydn, it's very particular because every time is a new project. So I open the score, we see, and sometimes I have the impression, oh, this time is not so great, the piece, and more we work even with the group, more we discover that even a piece can be less good, but the level of the brain, how the knowledge of Haydn, even a psychological knowledge, how to deal the music is always a very high level. So always you find, even it's not a masterpiece, but you find, let's say, something very refined. And you discover working on that. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the beauty of Haydn is a hidden beauty. That often is more interesting.
That sounds very cool. Hidden Haydn. I wanted to ask you about the state of early music nowadays. What do you think? How is the field developing? How do you feel?
Early music enter also in the market of the classical music since many years. I have to say that sometimes I remember the first years where the sense of the research, the discovery, even the groups, I remember in the 80s, like Jordi Savall, Musicantica Köln, really, and even us a bit later, the sense of research and historical, but not always making a lot of recitals. And I think today is a bit missing in general. And this fact that also the modern players in modern orchestra, they practice also, it's great, it's a great thing. But sometimes a bit, they just get information, they get what other did without a critical feeling. Mm-hmm. That is very positive from one side. From the other side, we create models to imitate. Technical level is higher today, I would say. You can find, for example, Baroque, classical oboe, fantastic high level. I have to say that maybe it's more easy to find something that surprises you in terms of sound, and I hope that can change, because I would like to be surprised a little more in general, listening a new group, a young group, and this doesn't happen so often.
And how do you think it's gonna develop in the future? What are the ways of development of our early music field?
Really, I don't know. I think there are much more, let's say, crossover in a way, and the fact to bring even folk music, and that can be interesting, but sometimes a bit too easy. Mm-hmm. I think, for example, if we take the field of improvisation, when you mix, let's say, early music, Renaissance music, and you take, I don't know, Indian musicians or Arabic, and they live the music in a different way, and you put together, I feel often that the who's performing early music, not always, but they didn't take the core of what they're doing, that is improvisation. So this, take, I don't know, Arabic lute, and you see, it's very cool in a way. I cannot say often of the other. There's something that often doesn't work in a way of to be natural, and often there is a sort of, you can feel that the group studied, they know how to do, but then to overpass this level is another step. Then I hope we'll arrive, that things become more natural, and also this aspect of improvisation will develop much more. I think also here in the Scholar there are great studies in this field, and so they say avant-garde studying. Because in the past everything in a way was improvisation, to improvise polyphonic things, and this makes a great difference with the concept of classical music that fixed something, the interpretation of Mozart, Beethoven, the great interpretation, where again focus a lot on interpretation, but there are many other things that can be developed and also related to modern music in a way. Let's think how much can be close to jazz music, but not imitating, so just mixing like a salad. I think not often comes something interesting.
Also, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the standard concert setting there, with where the stage is high and the audience is sitting down, and it's like a very conventional orchestra setting? Everybody wears like...
We have, of course, also we try different positions with the winds there, and there are some, in a way, it's a compromise. And even to have, let's say, a conductor in the middle is not historically even if I think that the music was conducted more than we think in some way. But of course, the role of conductor, I think, second half of the 19th century created the conductor. And so there are many things that are part also for the history of us. We don't live no more in the 18th century. We don't have no more we listen so much different music than Haydn. We listen Rite of Spring, and we listen rock music. In a way, is it important, absolutely important, to understand the aesthetic of the past and how they make it, but also the social situation is different. If you take opera, how they listen opera in 17th century, it was a chaos. Opera was a social meeting of persons, and you went 15 times to listen in Venezia, for example, opera, and a lot of noise. So would we accept today this? And even does exist no more, this social construction? So it's interesting. It's a very complex question, and we have to take element that from the past that we like, that can be, let's say, modern, but we live in another time.
Thank you very much, Giovanni.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you would like to get in touch, please write me an email that you can find in the description box. Thank you for listening. I wish you all the best. Bye!